Well, India's oil refiners have reportedly approached Russian producers about increasing purchases of its oil and at a healthy discount. Inside India, Jegarajah joins us live now for more on this. Sri, I know you've been following the story really closely. How big a lift could this give to India's crude supply, and how steep is that Russian discount?
Well, first of all, great to see you, Dan. India has been diversifying its crude supply options, but it is still heavily dependent on Russian oil, although still that dependency has been coming down. But we've really been getting a lot of very mixed messages as to whether preemptively, perhaps, in the face of these punitive tariffs on India, an extra 25%, mixed messages as to whether Indian refiners are really backing off from buying Russian crude oil. So top officials are saying that Trump's threatened tariffs have not forced Indian refiners to change their purchasing strategy of Russian oil. However, your point about the pricing benchmarks is very well taken. When you look at this, when you look at the discount to the Urals discount to India, which is a very closely watched indicator, that has widened. So that is telling us that demand has been dropping. So judging by the spread and the price action on that particular indicator, Dan, some Indian refiners are reducing their exposure. I want to bring in some dates here because negotiators on both sides arguably have some room to manoeuvre, arguably have some time to maybe hash out a deal and to maybe dismantle that extra 25%. And there are three key events here that we need to be looking out for. You mentioned this in the headline. Alaska, the Trump-Putin talks. August the 25th is going to be very critical as well. Dan, that is when US negotiators arrive in India, in New Delhi, to pick up where they left off, and that is the sixth round of trade negotiations that will hopefully culminate in a US-India trade deal. And then August the 27th, more specifically, that is the deadline for this extra 25% punitive tariffs. That's when it will be imposed, and that is what Trump is threatening on those countries, ostensibly India at this point in time, for buying Russian crude oil and Russian arms. So end August, early September, perhaps we ought to have more clarity as to where this relationship stands and whether India really is backing off from buying more Russian crude oil, Dan.
Indeed, Sri, and you really have to wonder whether or not the measures that the administration have taken so far have more to do with securing that trade deal at the end of August, or perhaps, if that is the timeline, or if they have more to do with Russia, because buying more Russian barrels could put New Delhi on a collision course with Washington, especially now that Trump has already doubled tariffs on Indian goods over the purchases of Russian oil. So do you think this is really a risk that Team Modi is prepared to take?
So there's a big element of vested interest here as far as the US position is concerned. They clearly have a big problem with India buying Russian oil and what they feel is continuing and supporting Putin's and funding Putin's war effort. So what they want to see is India cease buying Russian oil and buy oil from other suppliers, which India has been doing. That is a strategic energy priority for India, but ostensibly for the US, the reason I say it's vested interests is because they want energy to be a big part of a US-India trade deal. Another dimension here is that India, and we've heard this from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is talking to the nation now, has been addressing the nation on today's Independence Day, which marks 79 years of independence after British colonial rule. He's made it amply and abundantly clear that agriculture, he's not going to concede any market access on agriculture, and that really seems to be a major irritant for the US. And it also seems to be, Dan, and let's bring in the geopolitics here, and you and I have talked about this, that President Trump really wants a win, and that win is constituted in Russia backing off from Ukraine. And it seems like he is prepared to play hardball with India and threaten extra tariffs in order to get that way. So a lot of geopolitical dimensions involved in these negotiations. But the key dates coming up are those Alaska meetings, August the 25th and August the 27th.